The South China Sea has always been one of the world's most contested waters. It's a place where fishing boats, Coast Guard ships, and even warships constantly clash in a high-stakes battle for control. But recently, something very unusual has shifted the game. It's not the deployment of a new missile system or the arrival of a powerful aircraft carrier. It's something far less expected, and in many ways, far more dangerous for China. The Philippines' bold new strategy of transparency. Welcome to GeoFrontline, where we uncover the truth behind global power struggles. Today, we dive into why China is suddenly unsettled, even afraid of Manila's unexpected move. This strategy doesn't rely on firepower, but on exposure. And if it succeeds, it could tilt the balance of power in the South China Sea in ways Beijing never anticipated. For years, China's strategy in the South China Sea has been built on intimidation and secrecy. They've constructed artificial islands, built military outposts, and swarmed disputed areas with Coast Guard and militia vessels. Whenever Philippine resupply ships tried to reach outposts like Second Thomas Shoal, Chinese vessels would move in aggressively, blocking their path, using high-powered lasers, even ramming supply boats. Yet for a long time, most of these incidents remained hidden from the global public. Beijing's propaganda machine carefully crafted the narrative, while the Philippines often stayed quiet, wary of escalating tensions. But something has changed under the leadership of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Instead of accepting silence, Manila has decided to fight back not just at sea, but in the information space. And that's where the transparency strategy begins. Every time Chinese vessels harass Filipino ships, cameras are rolling. The Philippine Coast Guard has begun inviting journalists, filming confrontations, and releasing the footage to the world. Suddenly, what was once a shadow conflict hidden beneath diplomatic statements is now front-page news, with raw images and videos exposing China's aggression. The first big question is obvious. Why does this transparency shake Beijing so deeply? The answer lies in China's reliance on perception. Beijing projects strength by keeping its actions shrouded in half-truths, presenting itself as the rightful authority in the South China Sea, while painting rivals as troublemakers. But when videos of Chinese vessels ramming smaller Philippine boats, or firing military-grade lasers on unarmed crew surface globally, that narrative collapses. China doesn't look strong, it looks like a bully. And that loss of face matters, especially when Beijing is trying to convince the world it is a responsible rising power. Here's where it gets even more strategic. The Philippines isn't acting alone. This transparency campaign is tightly aligned with its allies, particularly the United States. Washington has been pushing for freedom of navigation, accountability, and the exposure of gray zone tactics. By showing the world what's really happening, Manila provides Washington with undeniable evidence to rally international support. When the Philippines shares images of harassment, the U.S. State Department and Pentagon amplify them, condemning Beijing's actions and reinforcing the alliance. But transparency goes even further. It isn't just about embarrassing Beijing, it's about building coalitions. Japan, Australia, and even European partners like France and the UK are paying closer attention. Manila's strategy gives these countries a reason to increase joint patrols, conduct naval exercises, and even consider more formal security arrangements. Every video, every image of Chinese hostility makes it harder for countries to remain neutral. The Philippines is using transparency as a force multiplier, transforming its vulnerability into leverage. Still, the suspense remains. Will this strategy hold when China inevitably escalates? Beijing has already accused Manila of staging provocations and warned against external interference. Chinese state media portrays the Philippines as a pawn of the U.S., trying to lure allies into confrontation. And there's real danger here. Each new confrontation at sea carries the risk of collision or miscalculation. The more cameras roll, the more China may feel pressured to prove its dominance. Could transparency itself spark more aggressive Chinese actions? That's the gamble Manila is making. But let's step back. Why is Subic Bay being quietly rebuilt? Why are U.S. troops rotating through Philippine bases under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement? And why is transparency the perfect complement to these moves? Because transparency is not just about showing aggression, it's about justifying preparation. When the world sees Filipino crews being blocked, starved out, or endangered, it creates a moral and strategic case for building up defenses. Suddenly, expanding Subic Bay or allowing U.S. access to new bases doesn't look like provocation. It looks like necessity. This is exactly why China fears transparency. It doesn't just damage Beijing's image, it strengthens the legitimacy of U.S.-Philippines defense cooperation. Every incident made public becomes another reason for Washington to deepen its commitment. Every confrontation broadcast globally makes it harder for China to argue that it is acting lawfully. Transparency transforms local struggles into international issues, pulling in allies, shaping global opinion, and cornering Beijing diplomatically. Now, imagine the ripple effects. Vietnam is watching, Malaysia is watching. Even Indonesia, which usually avoids open confrontation with Beijing, is seeing the Philippines chart a new path. If Manila's transparency strategy works, others might adopt it too, exposing more Chinese coercion across the region. Instead of Beijing isolating its rivals one by one, it could suddenly find itself facing a united chorus of resistance, backed by evidence it cannot deny. Of course, the question is, how long can this strategy last? Cameras and journalists can be blocked. Chinese vessels may escalate further, making transparency dangerous. And Beijing could ramp up disinformation campaigns, flooding social media with counter-narratives. But here's the crucial point. The Philippines has already broken the cycle of silence. By refusing to hide, Manila has shifted the playing field. Even if China fights back with propaganda, the fact that the world has already seen unfiltered reality makes it harder for Beijing to rewrite the story. And then there's Donald Trump's return to the White House. Under his leadership, Washington has doubled down on its commitment to allies. The Philippines' transparency gives Trump the perfect narrative to rally support. Standing with Manila against coercion, defending freedom of navigation, and challenging China's bullying. With the U.S. Navy increasing its patrols and allies joining in. Transparency isn't just a Philippine strategy anymore. It's becoming a cornerstone of allied cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. So, why does China fear Manila's new transparency strategy? Because it strips Beijing of its greatest weapon, control of the narrative. It turns every act of aggression into a public relations disaster. It builds legitimacy for alliances, strengthens regional security networks, and exposes China's gray zone tactics to the world. Transparency doesn't sink ships or shoot missiles, but it undermines China's ability to operate unchecked in the shadows. And that's something Beijing never prepared for. In the end, Manila's cameras may prove as powerful as its ships. The South China Sea is no longer just a contest of territory, it's a contest of truth. And as long as the Philippines keep shining a light, China will find it harder and harder to hide. Stay with us on GeoFrontline as we continue to uncover the realities of global power struggles, where sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't firepower, but the courage to show the world the truth.